best Yu-Gi-Oh! Rogue decks post the European World Championship Qualifier in Berlin. Big dog, I gotta say, I was wrong about some things, but it's really good that that happened. And so because I was wrong, we could talk about some Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategies that are actually insane right now, shove them in a tier list, and give you ideas how to beat the meta. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Alright, big dog, so the criteria for this Rogue tier list is simple. Because of the European Championship and the regional qualifiers, it allows me to evaluate some popular Rogue decks over the weekend and also reevaluate some strategies that I talked about on my meta tier list and regrade them. Basically, I'm saying, my bad, dog. I may have not knew your game as well. And it also allows me to talk about some things I was seriously coping on. Like, we gotta talk about those. Cali, the cope sometimes be too strong. One thing I want to point out, big dogs, is that I did try to get as many strategies on the Rogue tier list that you guys talked about down below in the comment section, and expect a budget tier list on some popular strategies like Sword Soul that didn't make it in this one. Let's go ahead and start off and see how these decks compete with Rescue Ace. I'm in danger. That's never gonna get old, right?
Yes.
So one thing that I really like about Rescue Ace is the Fiendsmith engine is a full-on incorporation. I gotta tell you guys, I was wrong about your game too. With another high-end top cut, I think that Rescue Ace can be a deck that can challenge now. Come on, guys, let's face it, set 4 back row off of a monster effect has never felt so good. And Rescue Ace having the ability to slow the tempo of the game as well as speed things up with really powerful fire monsters makes it a consistent dominant force in the Rogue tier list. One of the better decks that you can pick. And one thing I do want to point out is that I think every single one of these strategies with the correct pilot, a dedicated pilot, can compete. This particular tier list is based on the ease of being able to compete. Basically, I'm saying smaller brain, bigger competition, you could be able to do it. But I'm also not saying that a player with Dino can't compete. It's just gonna be hard. Big dog, this gonna be harder than them fries you find at the bottom of your car after 4 days. And you bet not put them in your mouth, bro. You nasty. I know some kids that be doing that. Let me know if you guys have kids. It's kind of funny because you're definitely like Dino's gonna need some help to be able to get some of those. There are a couple of serious problems with Dinosaur. One is, why is Misk still at 1? Between the Tenpai Dragon and the gimmick puppet filled spell, this is almost a crime that Miscellaneousaurus is limited to 1, but here we are. I think with that support, Misk coming to 3, and some more Dino support, it could be in a higher portion of this tier list. But for right now, just like those fries, and just like a lot of y'all getting a girlfriend, you need some help. But don't worry, I'll be your main man. Girlfriend guaranteed. Next is Centurion, the deck that everyone praises but doesn't do anything. Centurion reminds me of Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle. It does just enough to get you guys to hold on to it, but not enough to actually do something. And it still skates by. Well, just like Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle, even though I did recognize that, it's still a deck that takes a good pilot. Don't you just love where decks with 0 accomplishments still skate on by? It's sliding, bro. The predicament that Centurion is in is that A, it is a good Yu-Gi-Oh deck. It can summon some of the most powerful synchro monsters. Bestial cards are now good, so being able to incorporate that in your deck gives you access to 10s like Chaos Angel. But the problem with Centurion is that no one wants to take the time to actually play the deck. A lot of players just think it's Helmet. Also, Centurion is a little bit more fragile than other decks in a hand trap format, but I think the correct pilot could make this deck a solid contender. It's also getting more support. This is crazy. Can we get more Vanquish Soul support too while we're at it? No? Damn. Unchained is a Fiend Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I am so tempted to just put it in solid choice just because it plays Fiendsmith. I ain't even go cat, big dog. If you could shove Fiendsmith in your deck right now, it do get a lot better. But the natural synergies between Unchained and the Fiendsmith kinda does make it ridiculous. I think that Unchained is in a solid choice. It doesn't get any support, but the odds of the Fiendsmith or the Unchained cards being hit on the ban list is almost nil. So this is one of your decks that could be like the op. If it catch you slipping, oh, it's GG's, big dog. This deck can make even stronger boards with Fiendsmiths, and it's already a solid going second deck. We already know that board breakers are really good, and you can check out my board breakers tier list if you want information on that. I think Unchained is pretty solid. Plus, feed my boy Shabara, he ain't really do nothing wrong. Vanquish Soul. Yes, if we're going back to that Malcolm in the Middle thing, this one's Malcolm. Vanquish Soul has all of the tools to be a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but unfortunately, it doesn't have a one-card starter that can be searched 12 different ways. It also gets ignored like the middle child. Think about it, guys. Dino gets subtle support in almost every set. You see a new Dino card? Crazy. Centurion has been getting support in every Yu-Gi-Oh set. When we get in Vanquish Soul? Oh, I forgot. We got the mat. That should be enough, right? Unfortunately, the mat doesn't make us stronger. Then give this damn deck some help. I heard through a little birdie that if you play Vanquish Soul on the Vanquish Soul mat, it increases the consistency of you opening Razin, but that is not statistically proven just yet. Yes, Sprite. We talked about this one on my meta tier list. You guys said that I rated Sprite too low. On my last tier list, I said that it takes a good pilot. I also mentioned that Sprite had an incredible hard time with dealing with boards. You guys countered, of course.
No, my Sprite deck is amazing. I beat everybody at my 3-person locals. I got 4th place.
I'm just playing with you guys. I know you guys are doing incredibly well with Sprite if you do play Sprite, but I think we can all acknowledge you gotta be a pretty big dog to play Sprite. Most of the Yu-Gi-Oh players that I know either drink Mountain Dew or Coke. If you're Sprite, you fresh. But also, since you're going against the norms, you're also going to have to accept the idea that it's gonna take an incredible pilot to be able to play Sprite. Your deck has not gotten that much stronger, guys. The new support with the Ice Barrier cards is crazy. You still have pretty bad going second problem. Which brings me to Ice Barrier. Bro, that casual qualifiers, you, Genex, Flingville, Gusto, you cooking them, my boy. I think if we had a dual terminal tournament, this deck would be crazy. But if Ice Barrier players, if you want me to tell the average Yu-Gi-Oh player that this is a deck that you can consistently win with against some of the top dogs, I like Ice Barrier and I love coping. I just don't cope that hard. Prove me wrong though. I can't wait to see it. Now, there was something that I wanted to say about Salamangreat. You guys know I have been a Salamangreat enthusiast from day one, actually day 0. Before y'all was even born, I knew about Salamangreat and I put them on for my city. But in my last tier list, I almost put them under the tier list despite them having an opportunity to top. They lost in the very last round. One thing that we can't take away from Salamangreat is that it consistently does top major events. I think that the strategy has topped almost every single format at some type of major event, every single time. The consistency is amazing, but Salamangreat still has its problems. I'm gonna put it in takes a good pilot. The biggest problem with Salamangreat is that it requires 2 and 3 card combos to be able to press on, where other fire decks require 1 card. And that doesn't seem like a huge problem, but in the long run, you're starting to see potential plays where you need multiple cards and your opponent just goes, "There's summon and I win." It's playing the game on hard mode. I will admit that Salamangreat is a little better than I gave it credit on my last tier list, but it's still an incredibly hard deck to play and doesn't give you as big as a reward, especially with players playing Nibiru more. You can't go for the huge combo, you gotta play around Nibiru. Chimera. Hey, can we stick on the Malcolm in the Middle thing? Chimera's like Francis. Chimera fucks up in the eyes of everybody and still is that dog. Why? Whoa. Fiendsmith. It has all of the locks, King Tiger Wangu, the Dark Barrier statue. It can now play through hand traps because of the Fiendsmith cards. There's actually been Chimera decks this format that have topped at Pit World events. People just haven't noticed it because it's in Alaska. Not seriously Alaska, like Francis was in you get what I'm saying, right? No. You guys probably never seen Malcolm in the Middle. This is only for the boomers. It's a solid choice deck though. Fiendsmith genuinely does make your strategy that much stronger. And I think that if you can incorporate Fiendsmith successfully in your deck, you have a better chance. But it can't ruin the natural synergies of your deck. That's where I have to go back on that Red Dragon Archfiend train that I was on. I remember a couple of tier lists ago, I said that Fiendsmith Red Dragon Archfiend will now be the wave because we could set up with cards like Apollousa or DDD Wave King Caesar before going into our Red Dragon Archfiend combo. I forgot about Scarred Red Dragon. Unfortunately, if you are going into a monster not a synchro, then you can't trigger the effect of Scarred Red Dragon, which turn your Red Dragon Archfiend combos from 2 card combos to be able to prevent your opponent from negating you. to 3-card combos. And I literally just said that about Solomon Great. And let's be honest, Solomon Great is a more polished deck. I think because we don't have enough Dark Dragon monsters, that's the thing that genuinely holds Scarred Red Dragon Archfiend back. But to be honest, Black Atlas ain't got no problem with clapping the meta, even without all the Dark Dragons in our arsenal. So you shouldn't either. But that's also, that's the Black Atlanta talking. That's what we coping. The deck is good, but one or two things need to happen. Either other strategies need to get serious restrictions like this deck did, or we just need more Dark Dragon support. It does need a little bit of help. Gold Sarcophagus. Bro, I told you guys this deck can make Red Eyes Dark Dragoon without playing any BS, and I'm standing on business. This deck can still summon Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. But nowadays, it's probably going to get Triple Tactics talent, which, don't look at me. I think that Gold Sarcophagus is one of those good locals levels Yu-Gi-Oh's deck. And that just is a good way of saying it needs some help. I'm not talking about can I borrow $1 type help. I'm talking about, yo, this deck has fundamental flaws that sometimes get destroyed when going second, even though it's a decent going second deck, or doesn't necessarily make a big board going first because hand traps are very prevalent in the format. That type of needs help. I do think that with a little bit more support and a power decline when the format does get a little bit slower, Gold Sarcophagus may be a lot better than what you guys will give it credit. So Whitewoods actually has 2 tops out of the European World Championship Qualifiers as a runic variant. Big dog, I don't think you should be sure that it's more Whitewoods than it is the player and runic cards. We've seen runic variants like the Bestial runic deck be better in a skilled player's hands, but not translate over into most players' hands in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that's definitely one of those decks that takes a good pilot. The best thing about Whitewoods is that it will be better in the future. It is getting more support. All right, guys, I have been messaged by the plant community for the last few tier lists, and I am obligated to never put it under solid choice. This is not a plea for my life. The plant players do not have my address, and they have not threatened me at all. No, but in all seriousness, I think that Plant is a very good board-breaking deck. I'm going to put it at solid choice over takes a good pilot because it does have some natural cards that are just unfair to play, like the field spell card in Rika Konkon. Bro, being able to tribute your opponent's monsters to activate your effects before they can even respond to your cards is crazy. And the new plant support already combined with the old plant support makes the deck a little bit better. I think this is a good deck to pick up. Memento. Yo. The dreams are memes. Can challenges the team. This is the deck that you want to play if you want to be the king. I have no idea what I said. I'm just rambling. So the big thing about Memento is the Fiendsmith's engine. It genuinely does allow you to be able to insulate the mementos and allow you to pop off, especially seeing that Memento just got another top at a World Championship Qualifier. The deck's solid and it's getting more support, unlike Vanquish Soul. It's one of the better decks to be able to pick up, especially with the looming ban list. You're almost safe when you pick this particular deck. Valmonica, on the other hand, has been very disappointing. Valmonica does have the resources to be a better deck than Casual Qualifier. But to be honest with you, statistically, it's not better than Casual Qualifiers. It's really frustrating because I think with the dedicated pilots, the decks in Casual Qualifiers could be out of Casual Qualifier. But there is some inherent weakness with both of these strategies, and basically it comes to how the pacing of the current format is. I think the time is to talk about Madolshin. The support, I love it. The deck, I love it. Casual Qualifiers, it ain't getting above it. The sweetest deck in Yu-Gi-Oh history does not have what it takes to be able to compete. My copium is completely over with this deck, and this comes after hours, and I mean genuine hours of trying to break the deck. By all means, guys, you can go ahead and give it a crack, but I am pretty much done with this deck. The biggest problems is using your resources to be able to make your board and pretty much still being susceptible to almost any hand trap. 2 hand traps gets past any extender you want to do. And the Bureau of Primal Being, let's not talk about him. He don't exist, right? You guys are gonna love this take. Gimmick Puppet. So Gimmick Puppet does have 3 nationals tops on its belt and a couple of regional tops. I think one of the biggest things about Gimmick Puppet is that people have not yet figured it out. And if you haven't figured it out, I put it in my meta counter guide. Use that to be able to stop this deck. The biggest bold take that I have for this entire tier list is that Gimmick Puppet is not as good as people think. Now, granted, this tier list may look a little bit skewed. With all of the tops that Gimmick Puppet has, you think it would be a solid choice. But I will go and counterpoint and say that Gimmick Puppet was a deck that would get you to the stage but give you that first round exit. And it's mainly because once you get to the stage of players actually knowing about how to play against the deck, you get cooked. And now that players are on the spooky dogwood train, you are going to get big cooked even bigger because of this deck. I want you to think of this deck like the Dark World hand loop that came out in tier limit format. The only exception is that people weren't mainboarding the counters to your deck because it just so happened to be good against others. Until now. Exodia. Damn, man. Well, you guys may be incredibly mad at me, but I'm gonna do it. Exodia needs help. It's good. Bro, think about it. It has 2 win conditions. You summon Big Fusion Exodia, and then you got regular Exodia. All right, guys, yeah. I think Exodia is better than casual qualifiers. I genuinely want to believe in it. But in all honesty, again, results and the fact that Exodia is kind of a one-trick pony doesn't really help the case right now. Exodia is getting more support though, so watch out. It will become a better Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. I don't think Drytron is a bad Yu-Gi-Oh deck. In a format where players are playing Drolls, Bestials, and DD Crow, there is a spot for it to be able to compete. The deck is also pretty powerful with the new Drytron monster card. It helps a ton. Basically, I said I was a little hard on a deck that can search and summon Vanity's Emptiness, and says if your opponent doesn't have Imperm, they pretty much lose. Still gonna put it in needs help, but I do think it's better than casual qualifiers. Drytron has its weaknesses in a format, but is a functional deck under those weaknesses from time to time. And to be honest with you, I think it's perfectly fine to have a deck that did get support and make it a local levels type Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I would say these bottom rank of these decks, they could win a locals with the correct pilot easily. And then takes a good pilot, these are the decks that can top and win regionals. Everything above, those are YCS toppers. That's how I will mark the strength and ease of being able to play these Yu-Gi-Oh decks. Kashtira is a weird anomaly because now cards like Kashtira Unicorn can be an FTK, but as an experienced Kashtira player, I can tell you this deck is one walking brick. It's always been a deck of walking bricks. It doesn't make a board strong enough from time to time. And if your opponent can play around cards like Unicorn, you may be in trouble. I think the deck needs help. If the deck was more consistent, I would consider it a bigger Yu-Gi-Oh threat. But right now, since it isn't as consistent, and since hand traps don't do enough for the strategy, I'm not saying that hand traps are bad for the deck. I'm saying that your opponent can still make unfavorable boards under those hand traps. Kashtira's in a really weird spot. Ritual Beast. Bro, you already know, can challenge. The deck is Dimension Shifter and Arc Nemesis Protoss. How you beating that? Nibiru? Maybe. Molchummy? Also maybe. Ghost Sister? Okay. Yeah, that works too. But bro, Ritual Beast can consistently get to Protoss and make Appaloosa sometimes where you consistently need to get those cards. I like those odds. I will admit it is a glass cannon type Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but the glass cannon be shooting shots and it be working. Now, I did talk a lot of mess about Voiceless Voice. I said Voiceless Voice was a deck that was down bad. And while I do stand on that sentiment, this is still a deck that's down bad. It's a little bit stronger than what I may have given it credit. Once Voiceless Voice gets running, it's kind of hard to stop. I'm gonna put it in takes a good pilot. Now, Voiceless Voice players, if you guys don't mind by releasing my son or keeping him, it didn't matter, I would appreciate you guys. But yeah, the format isn't as hyper warped as I may have considered, and hand traps don't really work against Voiceless Voice. The problem is that board breakers are starting to be a little bit more popular, and that's where it's going to be a problem. Alongside of cards like DD Crow, Bestials, and sometimes Troll and Lockbird. Mimigools. Bro, we about to slide on them with Mimigools. Can challenge. Mimigools topped the regional, bro. They did it. I think Mimigools will win a huge event very soon. Why? Simply just because I said so. I don't think they're that powerful, but no, but in all seriousness, I think Mimigools is one of those takes a good pilot decks. A lot of times you can summon Kashtira Unicorn and then get your Mimigools to trigger it, which means you get a free look at your opponent's extra deck. And the gimmick that this deck does have right now works pretty well against some of the top strategies. Horus is an engine and a deck that came a little bit too late. Hey, yo, pause. No Diddy. Don't do it like that. I think that the deck is one of the casual qualifier decks, but to be honest with you, Horus is a solid going second deck and a pretty good engine for strategies. Magical Musketeer, I put at the bottom of the tier list, and then not only did I see 2 matches displaying how this deck is a crazy good board breaker deck and one of the better strategies to play Fiendsmith. Definitely solid choice. That Link into the Veins card that I told you guys to buy before it skyrockets in price, yeah, that actually outs a whole Snake Eyes board by itself. The deck is incredibly powerful going second, but don't sleep on it going first, making the Fiendsmith Desiree, a Magical Musketeer, and a DDD Wave King Caesar is a lot to lock out a lot of strategies. And lastly, Tearlament. Bro, I still think that Tearlament is one of the better decks in the game. I'm going to say solid choice. Now, this is slightly different than what I put in my meta tier list. I put it in Takes a Good Pilot, but I think that Tearlament is a little bit stronger because of the format that we're heading into. The deck does have the necessary components, Graveyard Disruption, and can get rid of cards off of the field, putting them back into the deck. It also can summon Omni Negation and play the correct board breaker cards to be able to break your opponent's board and establish its own. And that's all that I got for the Rogue tier list, big dog. It was incredible to go over it and correct some mistakes that I talked about in my last tier list. Of course, big dog, if you disagree with a placement of the strategy or something that I said, go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section. Also, let me know those strategies that I missed. Get you guys a budget tier list as fast as possible. Till then, check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.